Hey everybody, welcome back to some political soul food. I'm happy to talk to you from this setting here. I get to use the blackboard and I think you'll be able to see what I'm writing now. I'm working this out, so bear with me. So as I promised before, I wanted to talk a little bit about critical thinking. Critical thinking is very important in our day and age, particularly in politics, in our public sphere, being in a democratic country. It's very important for human beings, for American citizens, to be able to consume information and digest the information, right? And make choices about the information we're going to consume. Perhaps there's some good things we should take out of the packages of information we receive from media. Sometimes we shouldn't accept the package at all, right? And so we need to be able to dissect information. How do we dissect information? Well, I'm here to share one useful approach. It's a very, very useful approach. It can get you past some of the nonsense that we come in contact with when people are just shooting different things from their own opinions and their own personal experiences. So let me get into it. There are 8 modes of thought. 8 modes of thought that I want to share with you for critical thinking. So let me just write up here, critical thinking. Okay, hopefully this is coming out right. Cool. All right, that's the topic. And I'm going to share 8 modes of thought. So let's put a number 8 here. 8 modes of thought. Okay, in other words, there are 8 categories that our information falls into. Okay, we need to know what these 8 categories are, because when we are reading something, or when we are listening to a speech, or when we are judging political slogans, we should be aware of what is being said and what is being meant, what is translating. And so in order to do that, we need these 8 modes of thought. I got these 8 modes of thought from 2 phenomenal writers and educators in our country, Dr. Linda Elder, put her name here, and Dr. Richard Hall. Okay, cool. So look on Amazon and find any number. You'll see so many books that they worked on together, and I recommend that you get all of them if you can. But just pick one that you think relates to your concern for critical thinking. All right. So let's get into it. Again, this information comes much of this information comes from their work. All righty. So what's the first thing? Let me get a different color here to keep things exciting. Well, every time you encounter information, you want to be aware of the purpose. Okay. Everything has a purpose. If you're reading a story, a book, or an article in the New York Times, CNN, you're listening to someone on Fox, there is some purpose. Establish that purpose. Okay, establish that purpose as best you can. If you're reading a chapter in a science book or a history book, okay, establish the purpose. Now know that every piece of information, particularly let's say expository information or political information, has a purpose, but it's also dealing with some key question. Figure out what this question is, or it might be framed as a problem. What is the question or problem that the information you're dealing with is reckoning with? Okay? Whatever you're reading, whatever you're listening to, what is the key question or questions? You have to find that out. Okay? 3. Okay, so we have a purpose. Well, there should be a purpose. You should try to find out what that purpose is. You have a question. You have a problem. You want to find out what these things are. But every piece of information or a person who's communicating information has an assumption. Okay, some premise. Something deep, deep, deep back in their heads, in their mind, could have developed and formed through an experience years and years ago that they've forgotten all about. Okay, or maybe it's the assumption is formed by a particular belief system. But there is some assumption being made. Figure out what that assumption is. We all have our assumptions. Many assumptions are unstated. And so sometimes people make conclusions based on an assumption that is unstated, and it's up to us to find out what that assumption is. All right? And I'll give a quick example shortly. And 4, Every person is speaking, or every piece of information is coming from some point of view. Point of view. Okay, their orientation to the experience or to reality or to the world. Okay, and we need to be mindful of a particular person's point of view. On which side of the issue are they looking at the main pieces of information that they're talking about? Okay, which side of the issue are they on when they're discussing a particular event or making a particular claim? It's important to figure out that point of view and also figure out our own point of view. We have to be honest with ourselves as well. Alrighty, so let's move to number 5. Again, there are 8 modes of thought, so let me get to the next 4. Okay, 5. So we have purpose. Everything that we read or listen to, every piece of information has some kind of purpose, question or problem that it's dealing with, some assumptions, right, stated or unstated, and we're looking at it from some point of view. We're also working with a concept. Some people have different lenses. There are certain concepts at work. You may look at the world, you may interpret the world through a religious lens. You may look at it through an economic lens, perhaps capitalism, okay, or some sort of mixed government system, or maybe some kind of democratic socialist system. And we want to be mindful of the concepts that are at work and the things that we read and the information that is being communicated to us by some person. And we want to be aware of our own concepts that we're working with. And this is something that is useful in anything, especially if you're doing academic stuff in school, philosophy. There's so many different schools of thought. Like, I love philosophy. You may look at history from a Hegelian perspective or a Marxist perspective, or you may have an Aristotelian perspective or a Cartesian perspective. All of these things are at work, right? Let me get out of these perspectives, isms, and stuff like that. So back to business. I hope you get this. And it could be something very simple as your cultural experience and sort of your cultural orientation, where there's certain meanings to certain actions, and that's the concept that is at work. Alrighty? So let's go to number 6. Here we go. So we have concept, point of view, assumption, question or problem, and purpose. Number 6 is really interesting. They don't have to be in this order necessarily. So we have concepts. So now we need to know about the data or info or evidence for a particular claim. Let's see here. Okay, so somebody makes a point. They have a main point. They have a purpose. They have an objective. They have certain assumptions going on. They're dealing with a key problem. And they have some concept or point of view. We want to know what data they're working with. Where are you getting your information from? How did you form your assumption? Okay, what information is your point of view based on? Maybe it's just based on the fact that you were born, in a particular culture. Okay, we need data and information. So always ask about the data and information for assumptions that are made, or for questions and problems that are stated or created or constructed. All right? And when we do all of that, we can examine, I think, critically, a person's conclusion. Okay, let me write conclusion here. I hope you can read my handwriting. And I'll put inference. We might infer things. People infer and say, well, this is what is going on here. So we have the inference or a conclusion. That means a person may say, we might read something that says, because of X, Y, and Z, we get A, B, and C. Well, maybe that's true. Well, let's look at the assumptions. Let's look at the point of views that are in all of this conclusion. What about the data? What if they're using incorrect data? What if the data is not completely, true? Or what if they sort of made a mistake in their use of the data? All sorts of things can go wrong between jumping from data and conclusion. Okay, and finally, which is important, we have implication. Okay. This is the use and value of the information or knowledge that you're working with. Implication. Implications is very important. Okay, so you have this conclusion. You have this piece of information. So what of it? What does it tell us about the future? What does it tell us about what may or may not happen? All right? We have some kind of purpose that's being stated and some problem that's being treated, and we're working through it. from our points of view. We got data, and we arrive at some conclusions. And so, what is it really important? Okay, so let me use something here. I'm going to use something controversial here. Let's use some of the campaign slogans like "Stronger Together" or "Make America Great Again." So let's just write this in red here. Stronger. Let's put the hashtag "Stronger Together." Okay. Okay, stronger together. What is the purpose? I guess the purpose is saying, we need to come together. What is the problem? Well, if we're divided, we'll fall. We need each other to make things happen for the better. Assumption. Well, the assumption is maybe we're not quite as strong as we could be because we're not together. All right, point of view. Maybe from a person who feels that, hey, wait a minute, I don't feel like I'm in sync. My arms are in link with other people. What are the concepts you're using here? Maybe it's equality. We're all in this together. Maybe it's nationalism. Okay, who knows? Maybe it's fighting against division, or perhaps xenophobia or something like this. Who knows, right? Obviously, some of you have conclusions. You know my political leanings. So what's the data? What's the info for this? Why should we be together? Should all of us be together? Maybe not. Maybe there are some people here who shouldn't be a part of this whole stronger together thing. Maybe we don't share certain things. What is your data and info and evidence for that? And what is the conclusion about this? And what's the implication? If I do buy into this, we're stronger together nonsense, for some people who might say, what does that get me? Okay? And where are you trying to take us? What is your implication? That's one way to look at it. All right, let's look at make America Great Again. Make America great again. Let me speed this in here. Yay, I got it in. I think I got it in here. Boom. Okay, make America great again. So the purpose is that, well, we want to take America to some time prior to now, and that time was when it was great. Well, what's the problem? The problem is, well, right now, things are not so great. But before, things were great. Okay, what the assumption is whatever is happening now is not so kosher. And the point of view, well, my point of view could be that, well, I'm experiencing all of these crazy things. I got no more money in my pocket, or I'm being harassed. I can't get a job. Okay, that's my point of view from all of this stuff. What concepts are we using? Well, we probably need to strengthen our nationalism and make sure people here really want to be here in our country. What data and info and evidence that you have for that? Well, look around you. You can see. Well, you got to qualify that. And then conclusion, inference. Well, so because of X, Y, and Z, I conclude that we need to make America great again, because if we do, we can have a society that was just as great as American society under Ronald Reagan, let's say, or maybe under Andrew Jackson. I don't know. You pick how far back you want to go. It says make America great again. This needs to be clarified, right? When exactly the time? It may be weird. Because when we go back, not every part of America was great, I would say, right? You have some good parts and some bad parts. So that gets into point of view and implication. So what does it mean when we get back there? What does that mean for us and for the country? We're great on what terms, and to whom, for whom? All of these different things here. I hope that this gives you some tools to use in American politics, ladies and gentlemen. I blaze through this. Hopefully it's really fast, not too fast where you can't understand me. The back of the camera is facing me, so I cannot take any questions. But if you leave questions there, I will address them. I'll probably address them on that post here, the post of this video, or I can set up another post or do another video where I can address these questions. If you want more information about the authors or maybe very specific books that they have out here to address a lot of the informational problems that we're dealing with, let me know. Thanks again for joining me here at Political Soul Food. And I'm here to make sure our country survives and thrives. Thank you very much.